There's going to be a lot to talk about considering it's been a minute.
I'm actually going to start crying. Yeah, not to be dramatic, but it is insane. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast.
Welcome back to the pod.
Yeah, we have a fun guest.
We have a special guest.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Okay.
I'm so excited to be here.
Lucas, do you want to introduce yourself? Like, just a little introduction
Yes.
about
Hi,
you.
I'm Lucas, and I was lucky enough to meet Ishika and Manasa, oh my goodness, 5 years ago now?
I think it was 2019.
Yeah, it was literally 5 years ago.
Crazy.
In London. We all studied abroad.
Yes.
I'm from Indiana originally, but
Yeah.
we met in London. We shared a flat.
Yeah.
And I met them there, and we've stayed friends since. Every time I'm in New York City,
Yeah.
I always bug them, hit them up, and say,
And now Lucas lives in London and
Yes.
texts us with X's at the end of his
How?
text.
It's been like 2 years?
almost
now?
3 years, yeah, 2.5
years. Time flies.
since I moved to London like full time.
Okay.
So, yeah, I studied abroad there. We all did, and I fell in love with the city.
And then you moved
And
back.
I knew I needed to go back. And then as soon as lockdown started kind of lifting up again, I was like, life is too short.
Yeah.
I don't want to regret not having tried it. London
Yeah.
had always been calling my name, and I didn't want to regret the what if. So I
Yeah.
just made the move. I moved over for school, and I got a
Yeah.
master's degree, and now I work in theater.
Yeah.
I just have stayed,
cool.
and I love it.
And we're definitely going to talk about like your experiences
Yeah.
and how it was. But I guess like what changes have you noticed in yourself? Like, how have you become more British? Have you become British?
Have
Oh,
you become?
Have you
my
become more,
goodness.
like, do you notice it? Or like, do your friends, when you come back, be like,
I would like to say I've
"What?"
kind of noticed it
I
a
was
little.
It's the X's at the end of the text for me. I love it.
Okay.
I'm like, so
Yes,
fancy.
I do have, and my best friend used to talk to a British boy.
Okay.
And so she sometimes gets triggered when I end my text messages with an X.
With the love and the
Because the
X.
only person who ever like sent like
Oh,
X's
was the
to
guy.
her. But
That's
I
so
do.
funny.
My American friends do definitely call out. I think just the vocabulary that I've
Yeah.
adopted and changed. What was it? Literally earlier today, one of my friends, I was saying, "Oh, that's a good shout," and she was like, "What is a good shout? What does that mean?" And I said, "Well, I guess you would say like, oh, good call."
Yeah.
Like, or earlier today, I said, "Oh, I need to nip to the loo." And I'm
No,
like,
you said that.
you're being very, and I don't think about it because it's just kind of
Yeah,
the
it's so
vocabulary that
normal.
I'm surrounded
Yeah.
by. But I wish I had gotten the accent.
Yeah.
And I do think that there are certain phrases or the way that I ask questions, because the way English people ask questions, there's just a different intonation to it.
Yeah.
And
And that makes you sound a
so
little
I don't
more
have the
British.
accent. I wish I did, but I do think there are just turns of phrases and sometimes the way that
That's
I
true.
speak now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So
and
funny.
sometimes people tell me I dress British. Not, I'm dressed very boring today, but I have the same coat that I bought 5 years
Yeah,
ago.
From
we're-
Bershka.
From Bershka on the clearance rack. It was the only one.
I will
and
never forget that day.
literally the best
50
20
pounds.
pounds.
Oh,
Yeah,
20
20
pounds.
pounds. Yeah, on clearance.
Oh
And
my god.
that feels very English to me. And I claim that coat. I love
So
that
okay,
coat.
so I guess getting into the discussion. So okay, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this.
Wait, before,
Yeah.
definitely go listen to Lucas's episode because we've had him on
Yes,
the podcast
yes,
like
with Megan.
long time
We'll-
ago.
we'll link it when we post this.
is with our other roommate Megan. So definitely go listen to that.
we
We're
talk all
just
about our abroad experience.
yeah.
I normally talk a lot more than I did in that episode because my audio and my microphone was
I
not
do remember that we were having some audio issues, and that was such an old episode. Like
Yeah.
it was way before.
I think that was
a
our
lot.
first year.
It was before we even did any sort of video, because we started
Uh-huh.
doing video virtually after a while, and this was even before that.
So this is audio only.
It was
I'm sure
audio
I did
only.
not look cute that day.
No, but we'll link it. But one thing I do want to ask is, though London and England is like a Western country, it's English speaking. Do you feel American, or do you feel, not othered isn't the right word, but do you feel like or I guess how long did it take you to feel like more like this is my home, moving to a whole other city? I know that's a really broad and
Yes.
big question.
Yeah, those are like both really good questions.
Yeah.
I think the experience of being an American
Yeah.
is something that I don't notice a lot of the time.
Okay.
But I notice it then in other people. And it has working in theater and
Yes.
working in a public place where a lot of tourists come in. When I hear a group of Americans, I think I've adopted the like, oh gosh,
Here we go
loud
again.
Americans are here. Like I don't always like immediately identify. And then being in New York these last couple of days, my waiter at Ellen Stardust Diner, because I was doing the touristy thing last night.
Yeah.
He was American, and I thought, oh my gosh, I don't register that I'm an American now,
Okay.
so that sounds really obnoxious. That I'm like, no, I'm not like other Americans, but I've literally
I
had
get what
people
you're
tell me
saying.
that because I have a lot of English friends, and they'll be like, gosh, there's so many I think stereotypes about Americans, and they're like, you're the only American I can stand. You're the only American I like, and I'm like, I think if you just got to know people.
So American.
We have a really bad
We're
rap.
all, but we do
Yeah.
not have the best
We
reputation
also have a
abroad.
bad rep about just being from Jersey. Or like when I first moved here, there was this one of my friends that I met here, and she was like, "You're the only Jersey girl I could ever be friends with."
Right?
I was like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah, it's like I understand you have this idea of what. So there are definitely times where it's almost that like the exceptional other. It's like, oh no, you're an okay American, but like I don't like Americans generally, and I think that just comes from a lack of having actually like spent extended periods of time with somebody from America. If you only experience them in touristy areas or in hospitality, we are generally, I think, a much more outgoing culture, and especially in London, people very much keep to themselves, and they wouldn't, I always notice when friends or family come and visit, they wouldn't sit down next to somebody on the bus or the tube and just be like, hi, how's your day going? Like, oh, you maybe sit down next to somebody and you just sit and you look straight ahead and you don't talk. But Americans are so outgoing that I think sometimes that can be off-putting in small doses.
That's true.
But I'm like, if you just get to know people.
That's true.
Some Americans are great, some Americans suck, but we
totally.
run the whole gamut, just like English people.
Totally.
But it's really interesting what you ask about when did that feel like home?
Yeah.
And that's been an ongoing journey. I've been there for almost 2.5 years, and it was literally at the 2-year mark that I started to feel like the work that I had been putting into my professional career and my personal life and my community was starting to pay off in a way that I felt secure and like I had a system around me that worked and that felt like home.
You had like a community.
But it
you were
really
building.
took about 2 years to feel.
Yes.
That's so
And part of
crazy.
that was I was doing a degree for the first half, for the
Right.
first year. And as a student, I don't think you ever fully feel settled.
Yeah.
But it really was then getting out of school into working, feeling settled in that career and company and knowing the people there, and then also having time to invest in social activities in my neighborhood and feeling plugged in, because rent in any big city, but rent in London, like you just go wherever's cheapest. And so it's really common to be moving around a lot throughout the city, and every place is so different that it took me a while to really feel plugged in and in one place long enough that it started to feel like home.
That's such a good point. That's a really good point.
So yeah, I would say it took me about 2 years to really, and so now I just feel like I'm in a space where I can cherish the work that I did put in. Like now that I'm doing more volunteering and more like, I got involved in some community theater and even just going out and going to see shows and things like that. Now I'm really feeling like I can just enjoy the fruits of the labor that I put in over those first 2 years. But it was, I feel like, a lot of hard work a lot of the time for the first 2 years.
That's so crazy that it takes that long, but it's also so true. I mean, I think community is so important when you're like living somewhere because it's about where you live and your environment, blah 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 blah. But it's also like majority of it is about the people.
It's the people.
Yeah.
And moving to a different country, there were no network.
Yeah, you didn't know a lot of people.
Connections
Yeah.
or resources socially.
Yeah.
It was completely starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Okay.
And which was so new to me, having come from a small town in Indiana where everybody knows each other to a small private college in Indiana, where it was very easy to make friends. And then once I was there, you knew everybody. It was 3,000 people. And to then go, anytime you study abroad, you're going with a group of students who are from the same place you're from.
We had like a kind of inbuilt network in study abroad.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
we
had
did.
2 or
We
3
didn't
other
have
people
any,
from
like,
my own university
Yeah.
who I knew going in. But then once we all met, we were also living together and we were doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Going to the
and
same
so
classes.
we became classmates and friends and people to explore on the weekends with and travel with.
Yeah.
When you move there with nowhere else to go and just to move, I was like, wow, you really just start from scratch.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that makes a huge difference. It is so much about the people.
It probably made you grow so exponentially.
Yes.
Because it's so uncomfortable.
It is. I feel like I could go anywhere now. And that's been such a gift, I think, of this experience is, I'm like, if I could do this.
Yeah.
Totally.
You moved to another country.
Like, what else is there? And,
Totally.
And if I move somewhere else in the future, almost any city in America, I know I have a connection or a friend of a friend or a network or a resource there that is more than I had when I moved to London.
And
so anything after that will be easy.
Yeah, and now you know you have the ability to kind of find your way when you know, when you don't have that or when you're confused. I think I've always, I don't know, felt that because I also like have never really left the confines of what I grew up in. Even when I lived around the city, so many of us, of like the people I grew up with and went to college with, still live in the area or like came to New York. So even for me, New York, though it's such a big city, I have a really big like network. Like Manasa and a lot of her other friends. So I don't know, I've never really moved away. And I think for me, I've always been like a big family person and community for me has been so important throughout my life. Like I know that's something that is important for me. So even if I were to move somewhere far away, I know that's something I would really like search for and yearn for because I love being part of a team. Like I genuinely and like that experience. Even when my roommate and I, we were family friends when I was living out like in Jersey City, and we would like make dinner together. We would like go grocery shopping together. Like I like that feeling of like someone has my back.
Yeah.
100%.
And so I think it's hard, right? It's hard to find that. I think you put it so well. 2 years feels like a lot, and it is a lot. But in the grand scheme of life, you need time to like adjust.
Yes, totally. It is so many of even those little things. And I found when I first moved, literally moved to another country with a month booked on Airbnb.
Yeah. And to find a place and everything.
I knew I wouldn't be able to find a flat until I was physically there in person to go to the viewings. And it's so competitive that you have to be there in person and ready to sign as soon as you see it.
Kind of like the New York rental market.
New York's like
it's
that too.
really intense. And
I didn't know London was like that.
I had set aside all of this time in that first month to, right before classes started, go on as many flat viewings as I could. Yeah. And every single one would get canceled. On your way there,
because
you'd get a message and it was like, it's been taken.
Wow.
And literally the first one that I saw in person is the one that I took. But it was paying for a bedroom in a flat, a 3-bedroom flat. And so then you don't know the people that you're living with. And you're all there for different amounts of time. And you're all there on different leases. And you're coming from all different walks of life. And so yes, we're using the same kitchen, but we're not sharing that space.
Yeah.
We're not cooking together, grocery shopping together.
Or like having that time. Yeah.
So even when you're in that flat, the only space that was really my own is my like tiny little bedroom. Yeah. And it took so long, and it made such a difference when I made a friend, one of my very best friends, on my course at uni. And she and I then started looking for a place together. And for us to live together and to be flatmates makes all the difference in the world, because we do go grocery shopping together and we can meal prep together and hang out and watch TV. Yeah. And that experience, that makes your flat feel so much more like a home and a safe space and a place where you can unplug and unwind and relax. Whereas when you have like an acquaintance who lives in the bedroom next door in this flat, you are always kind of on, and you're always
homey
kind of
feeling.
It doesn't feel like home.
Yeah. Masa, how long do you think it took for you to feel like?
You made a really good point about like having your bedroom as like your safe space, and then like your kitchen when you had first moved. Because when I had first moved to New York,
you lived with 2 people you didn't know.
I had lived with 2 people I completely didn't know, because I met them on Facebook Marketplace. Because I was also, it was at a time when I didn't know anyone else moving to the city really. And I also wanted to go with the intention of meeting new people, because I wanted it to be feel like a new experience. So when I first moved, like, I mean, my apartment was so small. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it was like so small. Like, bedrooms.
Bedroom was really small.
My bedroom was so small.
My room was smaller than this studio.
Yeah.
It was. I can totally relate.
Yeah, and my window didn't even face like the outdoors. It was like faced a courtyard. So, and it was just so dark. Honestly, my first like 6 months moving to New York was pretty tough.
Yeah.
Because yes, even though like we have some friends who live in the city, your day to day you're not seeing them. And a lot of them I personally wasn't close with. Like, it was, like, friends of friends. So, like, my best friends didn't actually live in the city.
I also think when you moved, you were also transitioning from college to career.
Yeah.
So you were dealing with the change of, like, being around people all the time. Already is lonelier. And then you're also alone in a new city. So I think it was the combination.
That transition is so difficult at the best of times. To go from so much structure. And not only is your academic or your, like, productive life structured for you, but your social life is also structured for you,
right?
Like in terms of the housing and the events and the campus, and it's already so difficult to transition from that into a professional life where you are the complete boss of your own schedule, and it takes so much intentionality to build those relationships, especially with nobody around that you do know. To do that in a completely new city is a big
tough. I really had to put myself out there. I would say my first year in New York, and I still do that, like putting myself out there, but my first year I did it the most. Said yes to a lot of things. I met a lot of new people, and I'm so grateful for social media in that way, because I met a lot of my friends through that, or just like have been in certain settings because of that. So I'm grateful for that. But it was tough. It felt very lonely. It's so easy to feel lonely in such a big city because no one really looks and bats an eye at you here.
Totally.
It's like there's so many people, but no one really cares about you. They don't care what you're doing, which is a good and a bad thing, but that community feel, that's why it takes so long, because when you're walking down the street, no one's talking to you.
It's like that,
nobody's looking to make a new friend while they just walk down. Like,
no. So you need to find either like a friend who lives nearby, or like a coffee shop that you love, or a gym that you love, or a grocery store that you love, like something, a place that's not your apartment, that will make your area feel like a community.
And once you have a place like that where you become a local, you learn the staff, and then they maybe live nearby, and you start to, even just to have a friendly face that you recognize. For me, it's so funny you say that. There was a tiny little pub right around the corner, right down the street, and my first flat was in a very quiet area. There was not a lot going on, not a lot of even restaurants or places, like kind of just housing. But one little pub, and it wasn't the place that I maybe would have found myself in normally, but it was the place that I could go to. And it was down at the end of the corner, or at the corner at the end of the street, and the bartender there, she and I started just chatting, and I just got to know her, and she was this middle-aged woman with pink hair. She was a novelist and a historian, and just had such an interesting story. And it was just because I started coming there more regularly, and it was every weekend that I would come in and just maybe have a drink on my way home from work, that she recognized me. And then I felt like there was at least somebody who knew my face, and who I knew to expect.
I saw someone, this was years ago. I remember someone posting something on Instagram once, and it stuck with me, and it was the same thing. It's like, if you ever feel lonely in a big city, go to a coffee shop every day, and just like walking in and someone being like, oh, the usual, like that will make you already feel like, okay, exactly, like there's someone here who knows something about me.
It's like, I see you. You are here. And I think, like you were saying, with such a big city and so many people, it is so easy to get lost in the crowd. And to just, nobody sees you as an individual. And even if it is something as simple as the barista knows my coffee order, that can help you, even just as a first step. Remember that, like, we are people, and we are humans, like, sharing a space. And it's easy to lose that in the scale of a city like London or New York.
So I think it also, honestly, took me 2 years to get adjusted as well. That's so crazy.
And to start from scratch. I mean, that was something I didn't realize until I was literally leaving for the airport. I had packed up, I had like 3 bags and a backpack, and I then realized, because I graduated spring of 2020, I was staying at home and I got my first professional job at home while I was living with my parents. And it was from there that I moved to London. And it hit me as I was leaving that I had never moved out or had an apartment of my own or done a search for an apartment of my own until I was moving to a different country. I hadn't done it like near my hometown or near my college town, aside from student housing. And then I thought, this is my first time even looking for an apartment. And I'm doing that with everything I own in 3 bags, flying to another country alone.
Having no idea how it works about this.
With an Airbnb that I have booked for 4 weeks. So I have 4 weeks to find a flat. 2 weeks in, I got COVID. And I had to self-isolate. I had to quarantine.
In the Airbnb?
In the Airbnb.
Oh, no.
Wow.
And I had literally gotten the keys to my flat the day before.
Wow.
I had signed, and I had signed and like got the keys for the flat the day before, and the next day I tested positive for COVID. And I quarantined, and literally my quarantine ended on the last day of my Airbnb.
Thank God.
It was awful, but it was the best possible
worst case
confluence of events. Like timing wise, I don't know what I would have done. I still don't. It is one of those things where the universe just provided.
Just has a weird way of being like, no, we will make this. Somehow it's gonna come together. That's crazy. Okay, so I want to talk a bit about your professional experience and like your journey through that. I guess, have you always known that you wanted to work in theater, and what is your favorite part of your job on a daily basis?
Oh my goodness. Both yes and not at all.
Okay.
It is something that I did in high school.
Yes.
And I grew up, we had for a small town in Indiana, we had a very intense theater department.
Okay.
And so, like, I grew up going to those shows. We weren't close enough to a big city that I ever went to, like, actual professional theater. But it was like going to professional theater.
And did you perform?
As a kid. Well, so, as a kid, I, like, would always meet the cast afterwards and have them all sign the playbill. And I was so excited to meet them all. I like idolized these high schoolers.
Right.
And so then when I got into school and old enough to join, I was so excited. I did all of the musicals. I did all of the plays. Like, I was in love with performing and with theater. But it was never something that I thought, I'm going to go to New York and be on Broadway. Like, it was just, it was what I loved to do for that time of my life. And so I went to college, like, minored in theater, and then I ended up getting 3 other minors and dropped the theater. Like, it kind of fell to the wayside.
Okay.
But I knew something I loved about London was experiencing and going to see live theater. And so when I started my master's degree and I had made the jump across the pond, I was looking for part-time work. And again, such a random series of events, but was chatting to a guy on Bumble my first couple of weeks into the school year, saying, oh, I'm looking for just a part-time job while I'm in school. And he said, you know, I used to work at Hamilton, at the theater where Hamilton is.
Stop.
They're always hiring.
Being your networking opportunity.
Literally. It didn't work out romantically, but I got a career out of it.
That is so funny. Wait, so what did you do your master's in? Like, what was your degree?
My master's was in psychology.
Okay.
Because I was at a time, I think through lockdown, psychology was one of my minors, and counseling has always been something that I've been interested in.
Okay.
I've always struggled with wanting to do everything and never being able to choose. And I thought higher education in psychology made sense, and it was something that I'd like to maybe 10, 15 years from now pursue fully into like a practice. And so while I was doing that, one thing led to another, got a part-time job as an usher at Hamilton. And it just was so reinvigorating to me to fall back in love with theater and to see, even from just the usher side of things, how something on that scale was run and how you bring in 1,500 people every single night, 8 times a week to come see this show and then get them out safely and reset and do it again the next day. And I saw a whole new side to theater, like the administrative side of it, which you're not doing in high school theater.
Right.
You have volunteers and parents running the box
all of
office
that
and selling the cookies at the intermission and things like that. But to see on the full scale of the West End, like how an actual building and theater is run, I just found completely fascinating and fell in love with. And so it was from there that I started picking up supervisor shifts and working up into a supervisor. And then I moved to another venue, which takes on a lot of different plays and shows. And it was running Oklahoma last summer.
Nice.
So I was at Hamilton for a while, Oklahoma. Then I got a full-time role as a supervisor for the venue that I currently work at, which was doing a play about the English National Football League. Which I knew nothing about, but it was a great play. Great for fans of Ted Lasso.
Wait, so you mean so American football?
No, so
soccer.
Okay, that's what I was like. Wait, okay.
Good question.
Football. Okay, I was confused.
Is it like a comedy show?
Soccer. No, it was based on true events about the World Cup and the England national men's football team.
Interesting.
And not something I knew anything about, but it was a fascinating play. And now they're doing MJ, the Michael Jackson musical, has just transferred from Broadway to the West End.
Very cool.
And so we've overseen all of that, and I've done work with Les Mis and Mamma Mia, and it's been so cool to just learn more about that side of theater.
So when you were working at Hamilton, did you get to watch it every night?
Yes. So my
You've
job
seen
was
the play
literally
so many times now.
I've never. You know the thing is, I fully have a Disney Plus account, and I haven't even watched it.
Oh my goodness.
Like not live. I haven't even just watched the play.
You haven't even seen the film. It is so good.
I know.
And I know this is everybody knows it's so good, but you have to see it. And as an usher, you'd be sitting inside the auditorium during the show, so hundreds.
So you get
of
to
times.
just watch.
Yeah.
Do you know word by word?
Some days you're on bar, some days you're scanning.
But you probably know it.
Oh, backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
You're getting paid to watch this.
Yes, and that's a great show to do it at.
Yeah.
I've ushered and been in for a lot of different shows in the last few years, and some shows don't stand up to the level of scrutiny of seeing it 6 times a week. But the text of Hamilton is so dense and so rich, and there's something you discover on every new performance.
The universe has a weird way of working itself out because you loved theater as a younger kid, and then to be able to just fall back into it without expecting it is very cool. It's as if the world was kind of hey, you might like this.
And it's a career path I didn't know anything about before. I just found myself in London, and now it's something that I'm so passionate about and would love to see where it takes me. That I never would have found taking an aptitude test in high school. You should run a theater.
That's so fair. I guess since you've gotten, I know you love watching shows too, personally, and then you work for so many shows. What is your favorite? Do you have a favorite show that you have watched recently?
Oh,
your current favorite
that I've watched recently. This is a really obscure one, so I feel bad for recommending something that people aren't going to be able to maybe go and experience right away. But I am lucky enough to live really nearby a small playhouse in South London, the Southwark Playhouse. Incredible. They have 3 different auditoriums, so they're always running a wide variety of different shows, but they're tiny. It's 300 seats, so you get to see a lot of really great new work and experimental work and so many different things. And last year I saw a production of The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, the musical.
I really liked that movie.
And I've never seen the film. I've never read the book.
I've watched the movie, but
I take every opportunity to see as many shows there as I can because I live so close, and that's one of the ways that I've felt more plugged into my neighborhood and my community and things like that. And it was incredible. I think from what I understand, does the movie take place in America?
It does. I don't know if it. I think it does.
Long ago.
But the book that it's based on, maybe. But this show and this musical is very set in the UK, and it's very Celtic. And if you've seen Come From Away, which is another one of my favorite shows. I haven't,
but I know you love that.
Oh, so good. Some of the music is very similar to that, and then it's very folk music, and it is one of the most gorgeous, heartbreaking, breathtaking things I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's
and
an emotional
I can't
story.
believe I saw it in a theater of like 300 people because I think it has to become one of the biggest shows. And it's coming back. It's transferring into the West End, like into
Like
one of
the
the
big
larger
place.
theaters in London
I mean,
this autumn. And I'm so excited to see it again because there's not a cast recording. There's not. I want it to be just everything, and it's one of my favorite shows I've ever seen. So I'm very excited that it's coming back, so that I get to see it again.
When we were abroad, me and Manasa went with our friend. Did you come with us? I don't think Manasa came. I think you weren't.
I
there.
wasn't in the play class.
The class, there was a
No,
class
but we went to
where
see
they got
Matilda one time.
Yes.
I don't think Manasa could.
I
come.
have seen the Matilda in the UK though.
Oh, so were
so
you
when
there? Or were
no,
you...
I went. So when I went to London a year and a half ago, when
Yes.
we saw each other, I
And we
went to
watched
go
it.
see
Okay, so when we
Matilda.
were abroad, were you at Matilda? When you
No,
were...
I didn't go to see any. I saw one of the. There was a study abroad class.
I was in that class.
And I got in one of the
you
classes.
got like tickets to go see a different show every
Yeah.
week.
Right.
And if some students couldn't make it or whatever, they'd
They would
trade
hand
us
it
their
out.
tickets.
I
was
don't
in that
know why
class.
I didn't take that
I was in that
class.
class.
Me either. Especially, I feel like that would have been helpful.
Now
for
that-
me.
yeah.
Honestly.
Wait, I was in that class. I remember we watched Frankenstein, the ballet.
Yes,
In
I
that
remember
class?
you going to see that.
We went to an opera, which I
Uh-huh.
honestly really enjoyed. I was telling Manasa before, I just love live performance. Like,
Yes.
I have the weirdest memory of in like elementary school or like, I think it was elementary school, where like the 5th grade chorus would sing. I used to play violin in elementary school, and I remember being mesmerized. Like
Yeah.
I distinctly remember being like, no, I love this. And so I cannot sing. I'm not musical.
Have
but
you ever been in the school play,
No.
like elementary school? Really?
I'm not. I can't
Have you ever
sing.
performed? Like
Well,
in
I
any,
used to
you
play some
played-
instruments.
Okay. So,
Okay.
And then in middle school into high school, I played the trombone.
Okay.
But that was like only because you kind of had to as a requirement.
to
in
be
high
like
school.
in the band.
You
like,
needed
right
an
next to it. Mhm.
art to like credit.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, I guess I'll do this. But I left it the second I didn't need to
Yeah.
anymore. So I am not musically inclined. I can't sing for my
Yeah.
life. But I genuinely enjoy performance so much. Like I love
Yeah.
watching
Yeah.
live. We're going to Nashville next month.
Oh,
And
So much live music.
this is our first time
So
going,
much,
and
yes.
everyone's like, "Do you like country?" I'm like, "I don't listen to country, but I just like listening to live music.
Yeah.
Being
I don't
in that
care what it is.
atmosphere. Yeah.
Like I'm just so excited to be there with live music. Like
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
That'll be so
That's why I
fun.
love a good concert too,
Yes.
especially if it's like a really good artist. And last year I went to see Daniel Caesar.
Oh.
It was amazing. It was literally amazing because he's also just like has such good vocals.
I love
Yes.
Daniel Caesar.
And there was no like backup dancers, just him.
Yes.
You know? And such a big auditorium. It was literally
Yeah.
Madison Square Garden. And it was one of the best concerts I've ever been to in my life.
One of the best I've been to since moving to London is Adele.
Wow.
You saw
who
Adele live?
She did. There's Hyde Park has a summer
Yeah.
festival every year, and she headlined it the first summer that I was there.
That's crazy.
And so Casey Musgraves was there,
Oh, wow.
and she like opened for, but Adele was the headlining act, and it was such an incredible show. And it's literally, I think, like 75,000 people. Like,
Wow.
maybe I'm making that up. I maybe just pulled that number out of my
No,
head.
but a lot of people.
Google Hyde Park is big. I don't know if it's that big,
But it's a lot of people.
I'm not going to fact check because the story sounds better if it's that many people. But it was just this massive. I was so far away, you could just see her in the distance, and then,
the outline.
they had the big screens up. So
Yeah.
but it is still one of the most incredible shows because
Yeah.
she is just like a vocalist, and she has such
Literally.
an incredible personality.
She's
And
she has
you
an
see all
amazing
the
sense of
videos
humor.
like
Yeah.
of her Vegas residency and things like that.
Yeah.
But getting to see that performance
Yeah.
is one of my favorite memories since
Yeah.
moving to London.
That's
and
so
just
cool.
incredible from every sense of entertainment and awe and the performance and the talent.
Yeah.
She's incredible.
What has been your favorite era since moving to London? Like what part of like your life would you
Ooh.
say you've just loved or grown the most from?
You know, I think when I look back at everything, and I'm such a nostalgia driven
Yeah.
person.
So am I.
feel you.
So I'm like, I'm never going to say the current era because I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, but this time in my life was,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can just look back at all the positives
Yeah,
of it
yeah.
and rewrite it
forget
in
the
my
ma-
mind.
yeah, yeah.
But that summer was the summer kind of where all I was doing was I could only work up to 20 hours a week on a
on your
student
visa.
And so I was working 4 shows a week at Hamilton and making enough money to like get by. But because I was a student again, my main responsibility was just to write my dissertation. I didn't have any classes. And of course, summer vacation is the best. And so it was just such a world full of possibility, I think. And it was summertime. That was when I saw Adele. And it was just, I had made so many great friends on this course. And we all had so much free time because we weren't in classes anymore, but we were still there to work on our dissertation over the summer semester. And I just look back on that summer so fondly. And I think it is similar to any study abroad experience or university experience. It was right before everybody, a lot of us were on 1-year degrees and 1-year courses. A lot of people who came to London from America to study, but then were going back. And so it was that last time that like that image of us and that group and community were all together. And so I think since that big move to London, that is a time that I really cherish because it felt, it was brief, but it was special. And it was also the last time that like I could just work part-time and I was just going to sit and watch Hamilton 4 times a week.
You created memories.
Was,
because like when I first moved to the city, like there's a lot of times where I'll go back to the neighborhood that I lived in and I'll be like, remember when I did that
we always joke with
remember
Melissa,
when I did that?
If you walk by her old neighborhood with her, you will know everything. Like she'll be like, yeah, I used to like sit over there. I used to get coffee.
That was the first thing I did when I moved to London, because before I had a job, before classes started, I was just in the city doing nothing. So I would just, and my Airbnb was all the way out in the middle of nowhere. So I'd just take the train in and wander around the city. And I'm sure I still have the text that I sent everybody, all of our roommates, of walking through our old neighborhood from when we studied abroad and just reminiscing over, oh, here's where we went. We used to go to Barburrito and get burritos and beer. And it had been replaced. And I was looking for it and I was like, it's gone, but this is where it used to be. And this is where we'd walk through that tiny little alley to get to the Sainsbury's and go get some ice cream. And so I have so many fond memories of our study abroad experience. And the first thing I did was walk around that familiar place and like just take in all the memories and see how it had changed.
And I think you brought up a really good point too, how hindsight is always, we always think it looks rosier. And I think that's just something that I've been trying to go with. Like, I don't know if I've told you, but I'm going to grad school in September.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm still waiting to figure out where I'm going to go. I'm waiting on some acceptances, but I think when I was applying, I was like freaking out. It was like so much like for me trying to figure out what I wanted to do, a lot of essay writing and work while I'm balancing a full-time 9-to-5 job and doing the podcast, all this stuff. But and then I think we sometimes have this tendency to be like, oh my God, when this is over, it'll be great. At the end of this. And then I realized, wait, but at the end of this, I have to go back to school and I'm going to feel imposter syndrome and I'm going to be having to do so much. So there's no end. There's no end. The journey is.
It's now.
Right? Like in like the idea of like the pursuit of happiness in the American Constitution, like that is the journey. There's no end result of like now I can no, that doesn't happen. So I think that's something I've been trying to view it with too. It's like, well, I can still feel stressed but find happiness in this moment and find joy and peace while still dealing with something that's big and overwhelming. Like those two things can simultaneously exist,
because there's always going to be a next thing. There's always going to be, once you have something, you might want something more,
of course.
So it's like you have to enjoy the right now, because like, okay, say you got your dream job, then what now?
Exactly.
Now you have to do well at it.
You're
now you
going
have to
be pursuing, you're going to have goals, you're going to have projects and stresses and deadlines. And I think for me, I remember so vividly having actual dreams in the like especially in lockdown, where I was back at home with my parents, like living in my childhood bedroom, and I would wake up from dreams where I had moved back to London and we were in that same little area in like Farringdon, and I was just catching up with people over coffee, and we were like, oh, we're back in London. And I would wake up from my dream and realize that I was in Indiana and still at home, and my heart like ached for London so badly. And it's so easy to forget how badly I wanted it.
Right.
Yes.
And it's like, I set this goal and I
Right.
have achieved it. And like, I am living now in the like,
the life that you were
in the
dreaming
life that
about.
I was literally dreaming
Yeah,
of.
exactly.
And I have friends come and visit me, and
Yeah.
I get to take them to coffee and show them my local spots and
Yeah.
show them around my neighborhood. And I'm in London. Like, I actually did it.
You really did.
like actualized that goal.
Yeah.
And however stressful life can be,
Totally.
or however difficult that like moving to a different country is, which it is, and finding a new community is, and getting settled and making a brand new home and being away from family and friends, as difficult as all of that is, I'm also experiencing now the thing that I wanted and the thing that I worked for. And like, it is just taking a deep breath sometimes and being like, this is this is happiness. Like, this is the pursuit of happiness.
Totally.
Is right now.
Exactly.
And honestly, like as Anna said, I just think it's so cool. We are so proud of you.
Yeah.
To be able to see it from the outside, like I can't even move to a different city in the state.
And this is also reminding me of like,
Yeah.
you know, I've always wanted to live in New York, and I'm doing it right now.
Yes.
But sometimes I'll always think like,
You
oh,
get
I like
caught
want
up,
something
yeah.
else, like you
Yes.
know. But I'm also living this life that I like literally dreamed of when I was a little kid.
Totally. No, but it's so amazing that you did that.
Yeah.
And just took the leap to do
And you're
it.
killing it.
Yeah. And we are trying to get Lucas to maybe be near us, closer to us soon.
Hey,
Maybe one day.
And, you know, and that's the thing too, because what you're saying about, I always dreamt about of living in New York, and this was a goal, and now I'm here, and I think, oh, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that. Like, to celebrate the goals that you did set for yourself, but also leave yourself open to the possibility of what does come next.
Yes.
Because I have come to a point, and I struggled with this for a while, of being like, okay, I don't think London is for forever.
Yeah.
But that does not discount the like time and the memories that I have made there.
Yeah.
And maybe I will end up a little bit nearer by
We're
in
like
the
fingers
future.
crossed. Yeah.
But I don't know if I'll be in New York.
Yeah, by that time maybe you won't be here.
Yeah.
But I do think that it is so important to still like celebrate and cherish the time
Agreed.
that you do have in the present, but dreaming for the future doesn't have to detract from
That's
your
such a
joy
good
in
way
the
to
present.
put it. You know what I always think? You know, everyone says life is short, and I think that's a great way to look at it. But I just like to think that life is so long.
Life is long.
It is.
Yes.
In the sense that like what you do now does not have to. You don't have to feel boxed in. And you know, I think I felt that. I'm on a career journey, right? Like, I'm going back to grad school. I think when I was graduating college, I felt like, oh my God, I need to have this job and start this career path that, like, I feel so sure about. And I was so uncertain.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now I'm, like, 3 years in and going back to school and for something completely different.
Yeah.
And then again, and life is still long. I'm still in my 20s. In 10 years, I could be like, wait, actually, I kind of want to do something a little different.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think it's so important to realize that nothing is permanent.
Right.
You can, everything is malleable.
Yeah.
You know, we're constantly, change is the only constant. We're in this constant flux. Like, enjoy what you have now, but also be open to what is to come.
And we're so young.
Yeah.
That like there's so much time to do everything. I think we think like we have to have it all figured out because of how society makes it look like.
Yeah.
And I think we're all people who are also not people who are like want to get stuck in like a certain career and then we end up doing that for the rest of our lives if we don't like it.
Yeah.
So it's like giving ourselves that opportunity to make that change or do something we love or just like
I feel you all were just talking about this in an episode I was listening to, but you saying that reminded me of my biggest fear. And I remember thinking this so much when I was living at home during lockdown, was waking up and for whatever reason, the goal in my head, I was like, I'm going to wake up at 35 years old, still in this town.
Yeah.
And never having tried to move to London and never like pursuing that thing that I wanted. And I think it is so true that you regret what you don't do.
Not what you
and
do.
the risks that you don't take way more than you regret the mistakes that you do make.
Yeah.
Life is made to like be lived.
Yes.
And I personally eat myself up way more about the things that I didn't try or didn't do than I did if I had moved to London for a week and been like, nope, I can't do it. This is too much.
At least you know.
regret it.
At least you know.
At least I did it.
Yeah.
Like, even if I had moved back in a week and said that was not for me, I at least did it.
Totally.
And I think with anything, making those forward steps and going for the things that you think about are just, and life, this is me just philosophizing about random things, but age is such a gift.
Yes.
Like life, and I think so much about the world and wants to tell us that like youth is the most important thing, and cherish your youth and do, but like not everybody gets to grow old. Like life is long, and you should plan for a long future. But like not every year, every birthday, every wrinkle I get, I'm like, good. Not everybody gets to like grow old.
That's such a nice way to
I love how you said life is made for living.
Mm-hmm.
That just like hit me when you said that. I was like, every day we should be spending it doing the things that we love.
Thank you, Lucas, so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. This is such an honor. Like I was blown away. I was so excited when you asked me to.
Ishika and I were planning the episodes, and we were like, Lucas is in town. Like we should just have him on. Like,
and genuinely, I just want to say, I think there are just some people that like no matter how much time passes, you still feel like
that bond.
And every time I am around you, I just feel like my heart feels full. I'm like, genuinely.
I feel this. I can't stop smiling.
Same. It just feels like.
It's like an immediate
like
comfort.
That's the best way to put it. It's like this feeling of comfort. So I'm so glad that we're gonna go get some food after this. I'm so glad
I can't wait.
I'm so excited. Yes. We're gonna do a little Chinatown food crawl. Something exciting. But thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And definitely go listen to that old episode. We'll link it. Yeah. But I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. Definitely let us know if you want any specific guests or want us to talk about anything in general. But you'll see us and hear us next week.
Bye.
Bye.